Welcome to the Generation Why Not podcast with Ruth Klein, a 6-time best-selling author, creative brand strategist, and book coach for small businesses, entrepreneurs, authors, mompreneurs, and professionals today. She is the president of the award-winning firm Expert Celebrity Branding, and the Wall Street Journal calls her the marketing maven. This podcast will be interviewing this generation, those who are doing things differently because of their perceptual shift of what success looks like, and who are driven by attitude, not age. They know anything is possible, and you'll hear how this generation feels the fear and keeps going anyway to achieve their goals and dreams, whether they be in business, sports, the arts, or lifestyle.
Welcome to Generation Why Not. My name is Ruth Klein, and I am a brand and communication strategist and a 6-time, almost 7-time book author. And I would just love it, absolutely love it, to hear from you in terms of when you think of that term, Generation Why Not, what do you think of? I'd love for you to leave a message and let me know. But I'll tell you that this Generation Why Not, and I coined this generation, it represents a growing generation that is driven by attitude rather than age to reach their dreams and goals in business and in life. And what's so beautiful is that this generation is doing things very differently. They're being disruptive in a good way because of their perceptual shift of what success looks like. So this generation is very creative. They very rarely allow people to say no. They might hear it, but they keep going. They're innovative. They're quite courageous to be authentic and to be themselves. And they all realize that it's that internal value system that keeps them moving forward. So very pleased to be able to share a Generation Why Not person with you all today. Her name is Nikki Starr, Dr. Nikki Starr, and she's a medical doctor turned transformational life coach, meditation leader, and power and purpose activator. I just can't wait to have you hear how she transformed herself into something that she really loves to do today. And she went through medical school to realize the prescription to a healthy, happy life is self-care and love as medicine. I'm curious to know if the medical school taught that. I doubt it. After traveling the world to deepen her spiritual practice, she is now based in LA, where she works with people around the globe via her online healing and transformational programs and courses. And I was so fortunate that I was able to attend one of Dr. Nikki Starr's healing events, workshops. It was really a beautiful experience, and I didn't know what I was in for, and I was very, very pleasantly surprised and moved by it. So please help me welcome Dr. Nikki Starr.
Hi. Thank you, Ruth. Hi. It's so nice to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. It's wonderful to have you on. Really, really wonderful, because I know you have a very special message. And when I met you, I thought, okay, I really, really want Dr. Nikki Starr to be on my Generation Why Not podcast, and here we are. So it's amazing. You focus and you do what you need to do, and look, it works.
Yes, exactly. And I love the intro about it's true. I really believe it's true. When we hear no, it's like, oh, this isn't the right person to help me. Next.
Exactly. So could you tell our listeners how did it go from a medical doctor into a transformational life coach, meditation leader, and power and purpose activator? Because I'm certain, unless there's a medical school that I'm not, that I don't know about, I doubt if you had that opportunity to learn that there.
Well, yeah, no, of course not. That was part of my choice for departing, was because I could see that there was so much more ways to help the human, to help people, compared to what I was learning in medical school. And that was just like scratching the surface of how to support people to live a healthy life. Well, really, we weren't even doing that. It's like we receive people after they're already sick or after they already have issues, versus when we can still be there to prevent, like, so true preventative medicine, if we think about that. And I feel like now my work is really about preventative medicine, whereas before it was kind of like the fix it after the symptoms or the situation or the disease is already manifested.
So how did you make that decision? Because it's not easy to get into medical school. It's not easy to stay in medical school. And it's not easy getting out of medical school. So can you share with us a little bit about that journey and what you were thinking? What were your thoughts? What were your beliefs at that point?
Well, starting from a young girl, I was always drawn to healing and helping people, and I find that naturally people come to me to share their issues and their problems, and it was just very organic to choose medicine as a path because I did very well in school. I thrived in school and I got into my first choice. NYU Medical School is really, I applied early and I got right in. So it wasn't, that was a very easy path to get in for me, just because I was a chemistry, psychology, nutrition major, like all those things. Like I loved learning about the human body and mind. And then entering into medical school, it was wonderful because I loved working with people and talking to them and about what was going on with them and their problems and how to fix them. And I also observed that when I would hand off a stack of prescriptions, I didn't feel fulfilled. Like, oh yes, all of their issues are solved. There was times, of course, when people came back and if they did have kind of like a cure, but what we were finding is most people are dealing with the day-to-day stuff like depression, anxiety, eating stuff, relationship issues, pain and aches in the body, also just a lack of fulfillment from life, and that manifests into physical form oftentimes through different symptoms. So after being in school and kind of seeing all that, and then even being in the clinics and working in the hospitals, that's when I really realized that it was time for me to go off. But I didn't realize what I was doing at the time. Like I went and did medical missions in third world countries, and I was traveling the world in medical school because it was a hobby that I loved. And I cocktail waitressed in New York City to pay that hobby. And in my travels, my beliefs and my perspectives started changing. I once thought like Western medicine was the way and that New York City was the center of the world. And then when I was traveling, I had a different perspective that actually this world is beautiful and vast and there are so many ways to heal and cure and live. And I started to see that life really was offering me an opportunity. And I felt this opportunity when I had planned to become a dermatologist. And in planning to become a dermatologist, I realized that, well, that's also very competitive to get in and everything. And they were like, if you're going to apply to derm, you really need to take a year off and apply. And I was like, no, I want to apply now. And they were like, well, it's a 50-50 shot, because you do have a great resume and everything. And I got a good number of interviews and I thought I was in. And I'll never forget, I was in Thailand, and when I got the news about where I matched for residency, there was a divine intervention that happened. For my intern year, I got into NYU, and then for my residency match, in one of the schools that I applied to, they had an open spot, and I didn't have a spot. And how the system works is it matches based on ranking. So everywhere that a student interviews, they, like all the students rank the schools, and then all of the schools rank all of the students, all the doctors. And I didn't have a spot, and there was an open spot in their program. So it was this really crazy thing that at the time I was so upset. I called that school and they were like, yeah, we don't know what happened, but send us all your application stuff. But then, of course, all of the country can apply too. And so I didn't end up matching that year into dermatology. And I thought, okay, well, I'm just going to do my intern year, become a licensed physician, and then I'll reapply for my board certification in derm after I do research. But then after, while I was in my intern year, I was like, what am I doing here? Like, these people are like not getting better with these prescriptions. And some people come in there on like 20 prescriptions. And it just didn't feel aligned with my heart. And I had started practicing yoga and meditation, and having traveled so much, my perception about life and health and all of that was changing. And, you know, it's like, check, I achieved my dream. I became a medical doctor. I was practicing, but I wasn't feeling that fulfillment that I imagined that I would. So it's like, imagine arriving to your big dream, and then it's like, oh, this is it?
Yeah. Is this
and
that's
And that's what I experienced. And so instead of going back to Western medicine, it was kind of all by accident. I was looking for it that summer when I was abroad after my intern year. I was traveling, meeting with friends in Europe, and just actually doing a solo trip too. And in doing so, I was like, where can I find a month-long yoga retreat? Those don't exist, of course, but month-long teacher trainings exist. And so I accidentally ended up in a teacher training thinking like, oh, I'm going to use this kind of like a holiday. And it ended up really shifting my consciousness, my energy. I stopped drinking alcohol during that month. And that was in September of 2012. And I've never, I don't drink alcohol since then. Like, kind of have a cheers for my sister's wedding or something like this and have a sip. But it really started just to change my habits and how I chose to live my life.
Wow. And it was a teacher training, did you say?
Yeah, so that was when I did my yoga teacher training. So I finished my
teacher training. Okay.
Yeah, that was my yoga teacher training.
Okay. All right. So you had mentioned that, you had this huge dream, a lot of school, a lot of studying, a lot of stress, and then you got to the pinnacle, and then it's like, is this it? And I don't know, but what do you think? I have a thought that a lot of people go after their dream goals. They get there, and then they go, wow, is this it?
I think that a lot of people do that. Like, their idea of anything, they thought it was something else. And when we get to that point and it feels like a flop, doesn't feel like so expansive and so full of love, that's a sign, in my opinion. That's a sign. It's like, keep going. You're not there yet. There's something else for you.
And yet so many people, I find, just get so depressed and in many cases just stop trying. Although what is it that makes people keep going? And that, that's the beauty, that's the internal guidance center, if you will, for this generation. Why not? You were upset at first when you didn't get that placement, and then you kept going though, right? You kept taking action. You made a commitment to do more learning, to take action, whatever that might look like. And because you had this belief that things, that this is a divine interrupter, which is a good thing. Yeah, a divine intervention. Exactly. One of the gentlemen that I interviewed for the Generation Why Not book, his dream was to have all these toys, big house, make a lot of money. And I think the first night he moved into his big house with his family, he realized how unhappy he was. And it was basically that awakening. Is this it? Is this what this is? I'm not happy. And so he went on an internal search, and he has ever since. And he now has, he lost everything. And he now has everything, but it's coming from a whole different space. It's coming from the place where you would say is love and appreciation and gratitude.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Now, let me ask you, why did you choose dermatology?
Well, it was funny because I thought I would maybe be a surgeon because I really love working with my hands, and I have a very steady hand, and I have very defined skill in that. And it just so happened, it was the same thing, like one of those things that life happens, where my mother's friend worked at a dermatologist's office, and it was during one of the summers of college, and they were like, oh, maybe you want to work, we're looking for someone to help with the front desk and the filing and help the doctor, kind of like an assistant, like a medical assistant. And since you're interested in medicine, maybe this would be of interest to you.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, sure, why not? So I started working at this dermatologist's office, and I realized how much I love it because I actually was able to see the cure and the patient satisfaction relative to general medicine, and dermatology had an aspect of manual work where you would do biopsies and different types of procedures on the skin. So it was both, and there was a lot of patient rapport, because a lot of people were sad when their skin wasn't what it could be. So there was a lot of that kind of coaching element and talking to people about diet a little bit. So it was a little bit, kind of like what I do now. I talk to people about their diet or their body image and things like that. As a coach, I do that, and as a healer. So it was kind of foreshadowing more of the direction that I wanted to go. We did give topical prescriptions, but now I know that you're really just pushing it down into the surface, and whatever's causing the issue is not being addressed oftentimes.
Right.
So now I kind of look at skin stuff more related to diet and environment and how we're taking care of ourselves.
Yeah, it's so interesting. It's so interesting, Dr. Nikki, because I had acne when I hit puberty and all through high school. And this dermatologist was definitely an allopathic doctor. He gave me tetracycline antibiotic, and I took that for nearly 8 years.
Oh,
he never told. He never told me not to have milk with it or dairy. My brilliant UCLA roommate told me that, and years later, they thought it was diet. They thought it was chocolate. They thought it was greasy stuff and all of that. So the good news is I learned to eat very, very healthy and not get into that greasy stuff. But what I learned later was all it really was for me, and it was bad acne, was my liver. My liver was backed up. And it wasn't functioning really well. And had that doctor had a little bit of holistic medicine, he would have known what my facialist knew, that it was the liver. And and it's interesting. It's very interesting. It's unfortunate. And one of my 3 children was on Accutane because the acne was so severe. And again, had I known, and so anyway, it's so interesting. It's so interesting what you're saying, because it sounds like you learned so many more modalities, effective modalities, outside of medical school than you did inside of medical school in terms of sustainable healing for patients. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I would say I learned different tools. Like in medical school, it was learning the tools that kind of fix the problem in the moment, but don't always address the core issue. Yeah. Whereas now I feel like how I work is more about curative and transformation and getting to the root cause of what's happening versus just patching it up with like a prescription or an antibiotic or something.
Right. Yep. I love it.
So, and same thing with like, I think it's important to share, there's a huge pain medicine epidemic happening where so many people are getting addicted to different types of painkillers, where the root of pain can be so much from psychosomatic to emotional to energetic pain that actually is not, there's no physical finding, but it lives in the energy body and creates a physical pain. So really that's just something to consider. And I just share that because, you know, I don't even know what the number is now, but the percentage is pretty high of how many people are. So maybe if there's someone listening and you find that you're dependent on prescription medications, you may consider alternative medicine in the form of different healers or practitioners to see what's going on at the root of whatever's happening.
Wow. Isn't that amazing? Yeah, I really appreciate that because there is a real epidemic of pain medicine going around that, and then of course the addiction that goes with it. Wow. If you had two things with your experience as a medical practitioner, what would you share with the listeners? What are two things that it would be such a good thing if they paid attention to, or if they did, or if they knew about?
So I would say one would be to eat organic food. And that's because a lot of people don't even know about genetically modified foods, and they don't have to tell us about it. And when you go to the supermarket and you buy food and it's not labeled organic, that means it has pesticides or it's been genetically modified in some way. And both are big contributors to many of the disease that we see, from cancer to infertility, as well as hormone imbalances. So eating organic is such a huge one. I feel like I want to say three, so I'm going to say three. The other one is connected to the water we drink. Water is so important. And when we drink tap water, there is an issue because there's a lot of chlorine and fluoride and things that are added to the water that it's said they do it to kill the bacteria, but there's many ways to kill bacteria. But adding on, there can be heavy metals as well. So even the Brita filter doesn't cut it. You want to make sure you're looking. If you can't get, I don't recommend like the little tiny bottled waters either, because then that's all that plastic waste. But if you can buy like big jugs of water, or you can get glass bottles of spring water delivered to your home, that's really the ideal water. And it's medicine. So when we drink or eat crappy food, this is going to affect our body because it gets integrated into our tissues. So really top quality water, top quality food, and then minimizing the sugar, the cane sugar, which is pretty much found in every packaged food. And then the other thing I would say is meditation, because one of the number one ailments that people suffer from is depression and anxiety. Huge on the list of things, secondary to heart disease. Especially for young people, we're seeing that a lot. So I highly recommend meditation as a preventative medicine for mental stability, but it actually helps to balance our health as well, and our hormones and all these different kinds of things, and our interpersonal skills. So meditation is also another really important tool, and I use it all the time, and I teach meditation classes here in Los Angeles and online classes. So I really recommend meditation to everyone. It really changed my life too.
Thank you so much for sharing all of this wonderful information. And I really love how you gave those 4 suggestions. And in addition, not only did you give them, you gave the reason why. So many times we hear about eating organic, but we don't really know why. We hear about drinking water, but you went in further and deeper, which is awesome. I have a question for you. What about the waters that come in big jugs that delivered to your home, but they're in that thick special plastic now? That's the good plastic.
Yeah, so like I think Poland Spring might do that, or Arrowhead, or
right.
Mountain. So one that's in glass is Mountain Valley Spring water. And I believe that there's another one in the LA area that's like Alive Water or something like that. And he actually goes to the springs and collects them. And actually, that's the one I'm going to be ordering for myself, because I also find that there's some benefits to having water as close to where you live, if that's possible.
Yeah,
But yeah, as long as it's like BPA-free plastic, or even if you go to the supermarket and you go buy like the 5-gallon of Poland Spring, that's better than buying the little tiny bottles and putting all that plastic waste.
Yeah, absolutely. Dr. Nikki Starr, thank you so very much for your wisdom. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Isn't it amazing that there are so many things that we can do for our health that we can do right, without going even to a doctor. And it makes all the difference in the world. And so I love the 4 points that I really want to reiterate what they are that Dr. Nikki Starr shared with us. And I think it's so powerful coming from someone who is a doctor, who is a medical doctor, who went the allopathic route at first and has all that incredible knowledge, which is amazing. And so much of the learning of the psychology and chemistry and nutrition, and being able to integrate that into a very viable and active and engaging career. And then to be able to pull 4 things for us that we can at least think about. And that one is that eating organic, and certainly those pesticides that are not on organic, on conventional fruit and vegetables, even meat, quite honestly, that has really driven, I don't know this for a fact, but I would imagine it has driven a lot of dis-ease going on with that. So eating organic makes perfect sense. I was reading an article most recently. She is a supermodel, and she has a skincare line, and she travels a lot around the world. And someone asked her, well, how do you eat organic when you travel? And she goes, it's really hard when you're traveling a lot. She goes, she doesn't get crazy over it, but she makes sure that she tries to always find places that have organic. And if she can't, then she just basically accepts that, so she doesn't make herself crazy about it. So that makes sense too. And water is so important. And I loved what Dr. Nikki said. It's medicine. And that tap water, again, because of the chemicals, the added chemicals of chlorine and fluoride and possibly even other heavy metals. And it's my understanding that heavy metals affect the brain. So that's not cool. But to think about putting away the little plastic containers and getting big jugs of water, of spring water. And I know that what I do is I have a stainless steel water a water container, and I get Arrowhead actually delivered to my home. That's how I know about the plastics, and they made a special deal that it's the healthy one now. And I carry that around with me. So that seems to work well. The third thing we can do for our health is to minimize sugar. I think more and more we're finding that sugar is definitely addictive. I know that I had the biggest sugar sweet tooth. Oh my gosh. So I have definitely minimized it. Believe it or not, I had coffee creamer. And even though it was a coconut coffee creamer in my coffee, I had 3 tablespoons with 3 cups of coffee, which is only really, they're small cups. But that's 9 grams of sugar. 9 grams of sugar. So now I use half and half, which cuts out a lot of sugar. And then the 4th suggestion that Dr. Nikki Starr gave was to meditate, and how that not only helps I did not know it's the second highest problem that people are suffering from depression and anxiety after heart disease. That's just amazing. I had no idea I knew it was on the rise, but I had no idea it was that intense. And that meditation for, as Dr. Nikki Starr said, mental stability, and I'm sure it also eases a lot of the physical parts of our body as well. For those of you that would like to connect with Dr. Nikki, her website is Dr. Nikki Starr, DrNikkistarr.com, and her Instagram handle is at Dr. Nikki Starr. We'll have that all for you as well at the download. So thank you so much for joining Generation Why Not, and I look forward to speaking with you and having you on the air at some time. Bye.
Thank you for joining Generation Why Not. We look forward to receiving any questions you may have, as Ruth will be answering them on this podcast. Follow Ruth.Klein on Instagram or email rklein@ruthklein.com. Until next time, a short reminder that success is driven by attitude, not age.